If you're jumping into Throne and Liberty for the first time, there are lots of important things that the game doesn't tell you, and there are some mistakes you can make along the way that can be very costly or that can slow you down a lot on your journey to max level. So here are some of the main things I wish I knew as a new player, and some tips to give you a much smoother leveling experience, and so that when you hit endgame, you're just ready for it. You've got everything you need and you're just ready to go. So first up, let's talk about healing. It's a very simple one, but on some builds you can quickly find yourself just getting low on HP and not having a way to recover from it. And just constantly looking for a campfire to rest at, or going through your skills looking for a healing spell, well, there's much easier ways to heal that you might have missed. First is your Amitoi. These are the little creatures that float around you, and they're not just there to look cute and annoy you, they actually have abilities that heal you. And they will heal you every few seconds when you need it, at the cost of 1 world tree leaf. So if you've noticed you were getting healed a lot of the start, or your health was fine for like the first few hours, and then all of a sudden things got harder, you probably ran out of world tree leaves. So just go to any town and find the sundry vendor and just buy a ton of these. I always keep a few thousand on hand so I just don't have to worry about it, but just get however many you can afford based on where you are in the game. You can always just go into the settings as well and set when your pets will be healing you. I'd suggest you keep this really high, like 95% or above, as there's no downside to having this passive heal other than the price of the leaves, and that's not much when you get further in the game. That isn't really much of an issue. Okay, now for contracts. As you're playing through the game, you'll get introduced to a system called contracts, and these are like a mission board where you can take tasks and you get rewards for doing the certain tasks. You can do a certain amount of tasks at a time. There's like a limit of how many you can do, and every day this goes up. If you get up to like 50, you can do all 50 in a day. But once you run out, you have to wait for them to refill on a timer. There are things that you can know that make these much better, however. First is knowing the best contracts to take, and that depends what you're trying to do. I'd suggest first off looking at the rewards and going for the ones with the red stones, as these are for weapons, and that's going to be the best thing you want to work on early on, is getting really good weapons. So if I was just starting now, I would make sure every contract I take has the red items. I would take one, refresh the page, take one, refresh the page, and just keep doing that to make sure I'm just taking these items and getting a good stockpile of these red crystals. The second thing to look for is these bags. These are one of the best things you can find in the contracts, and they are pretty rare as rewards here, so take them every single time you see them. They give a random reward, but they have a chance to give epic items, so you always want to take these and you always want to open them. If you don't like doing contracts, or you're capped on your contracts and you don't have time to play and you want to do other stuff, I would just suggest refreshing these. Just take a contract, refresh, take contract, refresh, and then abandon them, and just try and find these ones with the bags, these blessing pouches, because they are just the main things to look for if you don't know what you want to get. Lastly, about these contracts is if you are doing these regularly and you're new and you're saving up your currency, don't save your coins. What you want to do is go to the vendor, and you will realize that all of the vendor rewards pretty much are time gated. You can only collect a couple of things a day. Everything is like 1 a day, 2 a day, 5 a day. So make sure you're going here and just buying what you want or what you need every day, because it's going to take you a while to stockpile the things that you really want. Okay, another thing I didn't understand while leveling is, what do I do with all of this gear? As you go through the game, you're going to get lots and lots of gear that you don't need, or things that you grow out of. And there are a couple of things you can do. You don't just vendor it like most games. First off is the lithograph. These are like items that you can hand in for rewards. So the first thing to check is to open this lithograph and look what you can hand in. There's a lot of RNG and it can take a while to find these items, so do try and hand these in before you just get rid of them in other ways. So always check here first, see what you can hand in. One word of caution though is be careful, because it's very easy, which I've done, to hand in upgraded gear, which feels awful. So every time you're looking to hand something in, hover over it and make sure it's not upgraded. Make sure it's not like equipped +3 or equipped +7, because if you hand that in, that feels bad, and I don't think it's reversible. So always check to make sure it's just a random item in your inventory and not something that you're actively using. The second thing you want to be doing is dissolving items. So on your inventory, click the dissolve button at the bottom, and you can just pick what gear you want to break down. And this will break down any gear into basic materials that you want. So what I normally do is just wait till my inventory is filling up, open the lithograph. Okay, put anything that can go in there. Everything else, dissolve it into random pieces of materials that are more useful. Then once you get to endgame, you can do more exciting things, such as selling rare drops or extracting rare traits from certain items that you get. But while leveling, I wouldn't worry about any of that and just focus on these couple of things. Okay, now let's talk gear progression and upgrading your gear. This tip is a big one, and it's one that I made the big mistake of. And it is not to just rush to put on the highest quality thing. Don't just put on blue when you find it. Don't just put on purple when you find it. Actually, you should be upgrading all of your gear along the way, which, you might want to be saving your materials. That's what I did. I don't think I upgraded much of my blue gear. I just saved it all. very silly. Now, the way gear works in Throne of Liberty is you can transfer the upgrades on an item into a higher tier piece of gear. So for example, say you have a +3 blue weapon, you can mash that into a purple weapon and upgrade your purple weapon. You will get levels for that purple weapon without using purple upgrade materials. The reason this is so important is because the upgrade materials for, say, green and blue are thrown at you. They're just thrown at you while you're leveling. They're thrown at you for doing events. You get so many of you. You'll have hundreds of blues, for instance, just playing through the game to 50. But purple items are much harder. Purple upgrade items, you'll be grinding out for weeks. So try and make sure you fully upgrade your blue items to +9 and then merge those into the purples as you're putting them on. It's a win-win because then you have really powerful gear while leveling, really powerful gear while progressing, and then when you do hit the purple, you get a big chunk of upgrades put straight into it without using any materials. So that is a very big one, it's a very important one, and it can save you a ton of time down the line. Okay, the next tip is not what I really want to say, but it's stick to one build. It's not a nice thing to say, and it's not how I wanted to play the game, but it's a really important one. And it is to find something you enjoy and try and stick with it. Resources in this game are very hard to come by, especially late game resources I just mentioned, like purple upgrade materials, traits, things like that. They can be very hard. Skill upgrades, it all starts running low once you hit max level. And you have to upgrade your weapons, your armor, your skills, your passives, your masteries. And all of these take time, grind, resources. It's just a time cost. There's a lot of stuff that's time gated, so you're actually waiting in real time for things to keep progressing your stuff. So I'd really suggest while leveling to find something fun that you really enjoy and try and funnel fully into it. If, say, while you're leveling, you want to do a PvP build with daggers and you want to have a wand build for healing dungeons, that is much harder in this game than in others. You'll quickly find yourself low on materials and you'll hit a wall for both of your builds very fast at level 50. So there's a ton of tier lists out there of like best weapons and some weapons that go well together, good build guides, both written and in video form. So I'd say just like play around early on, try ranged, try melee, try swords, great swords, tanking, healing, try different things, try and look for what you enjoy. I tried like the dagger greatsword, which is quite popular, and I just didn't gel with it. And then I switched to bow and staff and I love it and I've just stuck with it the whole time. So rather than just stick with one weapon and then try and switch later on, I try and find your playstyle that you enjoy early on so that you can put all of your materials in one place. And obviously, if you don't care about, rushing to end game, being meta, you don't care about waiting, you don't care about switching later on and then being a bit behind, then do whatever you want. It's just a tip if you want to just get going really fast at the end, it's just to try and find a build early. Okay, next is a big one if you're struggling with the combat or the controls, which is something I really struggled with when I first started. And it is to make this small change in your settings to turn on targeting mode. What you want to do is go into your settings, go into the target on the left side, the target option, and then you'll see a thing, scroll down, it'll say auto target when attacking without a target. Turn this on, and then cycle to the second option of target by priority. Now, on this setting below, there's loads of other stuff you can change, and I wouldn't touch that right now. While leveling, I just wouldn't stress about that. Early on, I wouldn't worry too much about that. But basically, all this means is, playing normally, you have to go to your target, click them, use your abilities, find your next target, click them, use your abilities, and it's kind of, I don't think that the native settings in Throne of Liberty are great. When you turn this on and you play like this, you auto-target the nearest thing. If you're a healer, you auto-target your nearest player. You can say even better if you want to funnel into healing, but if you're out fighting mobs, as soon as you walk near a mob, you can just press an ability and hit them. You can just right click and start shooting arrows at them. So it gives you a lot more freedom to just sit back and play the game. But yeah, easily one of the best changes I made in the settings that just made the game feel better. But that's probably my big 6 new player tips. There's loads of other things to say. Don't cap on your dungeon tokens. Save items that you don't understand until later on so you don't use them on the wrong thing. Make sure you work on your cooking. Make sure you go and try the different events and do the world bosses and try the endgame dungeons. There's loads of stuff like that. But these were the big ones that I think that I definitely wanted. I definitely either Googled this or got stuck with this while playing. And hopefully, if you're asking the same questions, this video helps in some way. If it does, do consider liking the video or subscribing to the channel for more tips and guides like this. But that's it from me. If you have any other tips for new players or any other things that you found along the way that you want to share, do let people know in the comments. But that's it from me. Take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.